Back again for the More People podcast. Really appreciate you joining us here with a good one today. You've seen him before, but we've got him back to talk about some more stuff. It's Andrew Fitzmaurice from More People and Sean Sankey.
Great to be here. Thanks for having us again.
So very, very quick for people who didn't see the first one. Who's Sean Sankey?
Who's Sean Sankey? So I think most people put us in the box of being an executive coach or trainer. So I do a lot of work with top teams across different sectors, often that are either trying to fix something in their strategy or their sales, or are wrestling with some kind of conflict at the top. So that's often the kind of work that I get drawn into. I don't know whether it's because I used to be a bouncer 20 years ago, like that kind of helps, like not being, too frightened of leaning into a good argument. But having married the bouncer skills with a lot of stuff from blue chip environments and boardrooms, that's the kind of work that I get drawn into nowadays.
And is Capgemini your formative period?
So after I graduated, I had an interesting year where I was a doorman, I coached a basketball team, and I worked in a call center. But then I decided it was time to, okay, you came to uni for a reason, let's go and get a grown-up job. So I actually got my start in finance. So I worked for a company called Aviva, or Norwich Union, as it was back then. We were rebranding back in the day. And so I did 5 years there on an accelerated scheme where that was going up to director level, working with the board, shaping strategy, really fantastic opportunity. And then, went off and did some leadership development stuff independently. So I went and did some courses and development in America. And it was really that got me to think about, I'd love to work with leaders when the stakes are high in like big high pressure scenarios. And the main route to do that, like on repeat, is consulting. So there are lots of big consultancies out there. I interviewed around and joined Capgemini for 5 years. They often say that if you do 5 years in consulting, it's like doing 15 years in industry, simply because of the amount of exposure you get.
Yeah.
It's almost like every 6 months you're having to change jobs. And I think that sink or swim, like become very versatile, make change happen quickly, doing that on repeat for 5 years just gave us a really broad toolkit that when I came out of consultancy and set my own thing up about 15 years ago, I just had a real breadth of experience and scars and war stories and tools in the kit bag to then be able to bring that to lots of different environments.
Which is, I guess, how our paths crossed as we were looking for someone to facilitate some of our training, our annual conference, which we've done for a few years now. So got to know each other quite well. And we're going to be doing more and more work more closely together in the following weeks and months to address some of the challenges that we know our clients experience on a regular basis. I think I know what they are. You think you know what they are. Tell us a bit more about some of those challenges.
Well, it's really interesting to me that in the last 15 years of running my own company, helping businesses of all shapes and sizes, I would say the mid-market is really underserved. And what I mean by that is that if you think about training, consultancy, coaching, development, whatever, people will tend to go in one of two directions. You either try and sell to blue chips because they've got big budgets, they've got lots of complexity, it's sexy work.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of outfits that do work for blue chips. There's a lot of support and a lot of excitement around the startup world.
Sure.
So a lot of people will try to target offers at startups. How do we take people with a vapor stage idea or they've just raised investments and let's get you growing quickly? There isn't that same kind of focus for mid-market businesses, good, fantastic, solid, established companies that are doing brilliant work in different sectors. You've got massive brands that people might never have heard of, but there aren't really compelling options out there that really target and niche into that sector. And that's one of the things I love about your business is, more people have got deep heritage in agriculture, food, horticulture, and really serves that mid-market space. And when we started talking to some of your clients, we did a bit of research, didn't we, where we spoke to a bunch of different folk about, hey, listen, do you have these kind of challenges? What kind of things do you wrestle with? Consistent answers came back that yes, we face those kind of things. And often it's not obvious where to go, to get support with that. Bringing something to that mid-market, which is historically underserved and doesn't have solutions that are really built for them. I'm quite excited about what we were able to do together.
Well, I think people get very, very caught up in that mid-market in the day-to-day, and they're very, very busy. They're very pragmatic. They're very resilient people. They're robust businesses. So they're not broken looking for something to fix something that's a problem. So they crack on. They don't spend the time taking a step back to look at what they need to push to the next level or deal with succession or make their board more effective. The reason we've stumbled across this is in conjunction with our exec search offering. So we're working across the whole range of salaries in our industry, from £30,000 entry role through to a £230,000 main board role. And again, I think under-resourced and under-supported can be that top end sometimes.
Oh, no question.
Because it's taken for granted this person's going to come in and just fit and hit the ground running, because that's why they command the salary that they've justified. But we all know when you introduce somebody new into a board, there's a period of storming as they're onboarded, sometimes not very well, and we're going to help fix that.
The stakes are always high, and almost disproportionately high in a mid-sized business. When you bring in from the outside world a new player into a top team, I mean, look, we'll come back to the organization in a minute, but just let's think about that person. All the research would say that, as a life event, transitioning into a new organization is about as stressful as either getting divorced or having some kind of health scare, right? Coming in when the expectations are all on you, the spotlight's on you, it's an unfamiliar setting, you don't have your relationships, you're undoubtedly going to have some kind of imposter syndrome about, well, I don't know what I don't know yet. It's enormously destabilizing for the individual that's coming across and joining the team, right? So there's that reality to contend with. Yeah. Then you've got all the organizational stuff that you're talking about, the top team. It's like, well, who is this person? How are they going to fit in? There's lots of entrenched relationships that, are there in the mix of getting the business done. And how do you fold somebody into that? It's just really fraught with a lot of challenges that, as you say, because people are busy, because the operation is demanding, there isn't often the time and space given to go and wait, well, how do we do this well? Because you'll sink a ton of time and money into bringing that person in. And then, as you say, if you make the mistake of not putting an adequate amount of time and money and effort into integrating that person in, then that upfront investment is significant. You might as well kiss goodbye to it. Because I think the depressing stats are that, what is it? Depend on the research, you believe, something between a half and 2/3 of senior execs fail within the first 18 months.
So as we try and articulate in a short space of time what our offerings are going to be in this space, working together, you with our clients, we're talking about the challenge of onboarding new senior appointments into boards primarily. We're talking about alignment as a separate point, to get agreement and consensus and to get those things on the table at, again, board level. What else are we talking about?
So rather than come out with, as you say, some generic, we do training and coaching and a bit of support, from the research, we thought it's better to come out with 4 very specific things that if you as a team are facing these things, consider these as very specific, targeted, call them interventions, call them programs, support vehicles, whatever, things that can help. So you mentioned post-placement support. We can talk about top team alignment. That's really about helping a team who, for whatever reason, find themselves a bit of an impasse. I've got a client that I'm walking through with this right now, where the top team just cannot agree about the structure that should exist underneath them, and they've been fighting about it for the last 6 months. So there's going to be something around that. How can you help a top team who normally does really great in agreeing, for whatever reason, just get back together on the same page? Change leadership. So when you're trying to either start or unstick a change program that you're driving through your business, it can often feel like, have you ever put together one of these Airfix kind of toy airplane kits, right? Have you ever tried to build a real airplane?
No.
Have you ever tried to build a real airplane whilst it's 30,000 feet in the air and you're getting attacked?
Thankfully, no.
Right? Okay. But that's what the reality of change leadership is, right? There's lots of stuff that sounds great on paper and you can do with a small control environment in front of you. That's the Airfix kit, right? The reality of leading complex change in a decent sized business is you are trying to rebuild the plane whilst it's in flight and you're getting kind of attacked from all different angles. Now, there is a toolkit that can help leaders do that well and figure out, how do we lead change where things are shifting around us all the time, where we lose sight of the original business case, where people aren't buying in the way that we thought, that there's predictable things that go wrong or that a team can fall into and struggle with when they're driving change forward. But often they're not taught and they're not shared. But from 20 years of supporting teams with driving change through in the real world, what we've done is just build a short intervention which helps teams really understand how to lead change. There's a lot of generic stuff out there on change management. This is not that. This is about how to use a senior team, really lead change when you're starting or stuck. So there's that third thing around change leadership. And then the fourth piece is around succession planning and what we're calling tier 2 talent development.
Yeah.
And to be honest, this is something that we've got a lot of traction with already, where people are saying, I'm looking at transition in my business. It could be a family-owned business that's been around for a while, or it could just be a team that's been, embedded for quite a while and are comfortable at that level. But they look at the level or two beneath and think, crikey, like, where's the talent that, we see stepping into senior roles in the next 3 to 5 years? Helping businesses, A, define what good looks like for succession in the business is challenge number one. But then 2, again, with what is often offered to the mid-market, there's a lot of leadership development programs out there which are generic. And I don't know if people have ever really thought about this, but the reason that, we'd send someone off to a business school, go and get your MBA, or go and join this 12-month leadership development program or whatever, you're sending someone off to something that is engineered to be efficient to deliver. That's what those things are, predetermined, mapped out list of competencies. We walk you through this content. It's generic. And interestingly, and I'm sure you found this, you go on a training course and often you'll come back from it and people go, how was the training course? And often the number one thing people say is, oh, well, it's just really great to get away, isn't it? They never talk about the material. They never talk about how that stuff helps them back at the office. The business can't really tell a story about, oh, by sending our people on this course, we changed this, and this in our business. And it's because of how that intervention was designed. It might all be good stuff, but you need to shape, if you genuinely want succession planning and leadership development to make a short to medium term difference in your business, you have to design your leadership development program off the back of that to say, what are the succession outcomes we want and what are the business challenges we're wrestling with? Okay, let's build a leadership development program that solves for those and at the same time develops competencies, knowledge, skills, and behaviors. So that's the leadership development succession planning piece that we think there's a gap for, in the clients that will be watching this podcast.
Well, we've been banging the drum for a long time about succession planning, and it's always a hot topic at our exec networking dinners. And it feels like the needle has moved. People are being more aware that they have those issues, or the absence of a plan is something they want to address. Hopefully the product we're creating here helps them take the next step to actually do something about it. Because it's one thing to recognize there's an issue, but again, making the time or knowing how to go about developing that tier 2 is the bit we're going to bring to light.
Absolutely. And I think it's well understood in people development that the toughest transition to make in your career is to make that leap from someone who's very good at a particular discipline. You've got a brilliant factory manager or operations manager or someone who's climbed up and got very good at a thing, but then to turn them into someone who's strategic and can make that leap to go and right, well, it's not just about being good at the thing anymore. Can you run a P&L? Can you shape a change program? Can you inspire a team? Can you work well with colleagues of very different disciplines? You don't get that from just being very good within a silo. And that transition is what you've got to plan for. If you want real succession onto your board, into director roles, it's helping people make that mental shift from, okay, it's not just about being really great at what you do anymore. That was the price of entry. Now it's a completely different game where you've got to bolt on these new skills and behaviors that really make you a viable candidate for director, board level, etc. That's what we're trying to bring to bear.
And we've got tons of material to talk about, a lot of supporting documentation, more videos. Happy to come and consult people to explain these 4 offerings, but I can't wait to get it going.
No, indeed.
It's going to be brilliant.
Yeah, will be.